And we should be going live right about now. Hello, everybody, and welcome to this week's Webinar Wednesday. It's been, we were on last. It's been a while since we've been in Webinar Jam. Welcome back to Webinar Jam to all of us. I think that's pretty exciting to be back. Kind of feels like putting on an old pair of shoes today. We've got a great webinar lined up. Now, before I introduce Vicky and get started with all things, let me deal with a few administrative issues, let you know what's going on. So we are in Webinar Jam. On the right-hand side of your screen is the chat. Engage in the chat. Talk to us to tell us where you're coming in from. We're looking forward to all of your feedback as we go along. Today's webinar is being recorded as I speak. You will be sent a replay link. Now, I always send out the replay link afterwards in YouTube so that you can watch it in kind of double speed. Get through it a little bit quicker if you happen to have to drop out for any reason. If you have technical issues, if the stream gets interrupted at any rate, if life interrupts, worry not. The entire replay will be sent to you shortly after we are done today. It'll be there by tomorrow morning type thing. Let me see. What else do we have? Do I have any other things that I need to tell you about? That's about it. I've got April is in the control room, so she is there and she'll help you with any technical issues. If you do have problems there's a reconnect button at the top of the screen if you're on the desktop version of Webinar Jam that you can always use. If not, you can just refresh your browser or just reload the entire webinar session. And if that doesn't work, if you're still having issues, try a different browser. If that doesn't work, you're screwed. So you'll have to wait. You'll have to wait for the replay. So today's webinar has been in the works since, I think, November of last year. I first talked to Vicky about doing this, but because of scheduling conflicts and getting married and Vicky's incredible social commitment schedule, we were unable to do it until this week. But bringing you on, normally just down the street from me in Maple Ridge, BC, but now down in Phoenix this week is Vick Mcleod, a good friend of mine and a digital detox expert. We're going to call you a digital detox expert. I know you, but you've written a book kind of on it, so you're way more of an expert than the rest of us. Vicky, how are you doing?
I'm great. Thanks, Steve. Welcome. Hi, everybody. It's nice to be here. Yeah.
Now, full disclosure, Vicky and I are friends. We've been friends for how many years? Like 6 years now?
Something like that, yeah.
Yeah. But I'm pretty sure we're old souls. We were very close friends from the first time we met. So in past lives, we probably hunted brontosauruses together at some point in life. Anyway, so the topic is one that fills me with a great deal of anxiety because I always feel guilty about spending too much time online. Do you? You don't, do you?
I don't. Well, I don't really, because I'm pretty conscious about time spent, how time is spent online or offline. So yeah, but I can go there for sure. So
you're better than the rest of us. Here's what I want to do. I want to start it with a poll. I got to start it.
I'm nurse and I just need more, structure.
Yeah, I've got two polls for us today, and the first one is this. I am going to put. Now I have to say displayed results at the end of the poll. There we go. Here it is. It's going to appear in your chat.
Okay.
Are you in control of your time? I have three options for you. I'm the boss. I'd like to think so, but I'm not sure. Or nope, totally out of control. Nope, totally out of control. And I wish you guys could see, I wish they would show this in real time, the thing, because I'm seeing, I actually see the scales go up and down in real time. Only 25% of people, 22, 24% feel they're the boss right now. It's like a game going on. 52% are in the middle. 20%, 21% are totally out of control. It looks like the people that are in control and out of control, that number is staying the same. Like they're the same. They're much of a muchness, and the other one is double as much. So, are you the boss, Vicky? Did you vote?
Yeah, I would say yes. Most of the time, I am, and that's been a life's work, right? Like I do want to say that I kind of really want to reassure people as we enter this topic that you don't. There's not like an overnight solution to the way that you've been living your life for a lifetime, and feeling like I'm in control and in a sense in control of my time has been a life's work. Like it's been a practice and repracticing and trying new things and meeting challenges.
And technology has crept up on us. Our dependence has crept up on us in a almost, I wouldn't say an insidious fashion, but it has been very subtle in its insertion in our lives.
I think so. For some, yeah, I think for some it's been a big shock. Yeah. And for others, it's been, we started, you and I were talking about this, like managing email at one time was an issue. Like, to go back to those days when all I was worried about what was in my email inbox.
I'm trying to figure out how I did anything before Google. How did I find anything?
Yeah.
How did you know what movies Ricardo Montalban was in? How did we know that?
How did we know who Ricardo Montalban was?
Of that? We must have lived
Google it and find out, which a lot of people will probably be doing now, right?
Looking it up, exactly. Hey, Google. Don't say hey, Google. Here's what we're going to do. So, Vicky, you and I recorded an interview yesterday where we go through all of this. So I'm going to switch us over to that. It's all pre-recorded, folks. We got about 21 minutes of Vicky and my interview, which is going to kind of set the baseline for the entire conversation. So once I publish the poll, we'll wait a sec. I will push the video through, and Vicky and I will engage with you in chat as we're going through. But let's end the poll now, since you put it in, and look at the numbers. There it is. 21% of you, or 28% of you, are the boss. Good for you. Congratulations. Right. Looking for sage advice from all of you on how the rest of us can gain control.
Yeah.
51% would like to think so, but not sure. And really, if you're not sure,
yeah, you're not.
And 21% admit that you're totally out of control. This webinar is for you and me, frankly. All right. So here's what we will do. Are you surprised at those numbers?
A little bit. Yeah, I am actually. I thought it would be a bit higher in the people feeling that they're the boss of their time. Yeah.
You thought it'd be higher? I didn't.
Oh, no? Okay, good.
Yeah, I'm surprised that anybody feels they're in control. I think you're lying.
Well, I would take on the word control, but that's a whole different webinar.
Yes, we can do that. Yeah, you talk about balance. Okay, so let's jump in. Let's jump into the video, and I'm looking forward to the chat. And at the other side, of course, we'll be answering all of your questions. We'll be working through all the Q&A today. So let's dive right into today's video insertion on Webinar Wednesday. Vicky, all right, Vicky, we are diving into the entire concept of disconnecting, which I have to tell you, and I think you know me well enough now, fills me with tremendous angst. Like, why would you ever choose not to be connected to the world around us through the internet? It's like, so I know, and I feel guilty to a certain extent sometimes because I know you have such a wonderful, balanced life. You're always so zen. So,
well, at least I appear to be.
Are you like one of those ducks that seems so calm on the surface, but you're paddling like crazy underneath?
We're paddling like crazy, yeah.
So let's talk about, because I think people, there's an addictive nature to the internet, but there's also a practical aspect of being connected for people. Many of the people on the call today are entrepreneurs. And so, there's nobody that's minding the store when we're not minding the store. So talk to me about the balance and, kind of, and if you can, weave it towards what, why you did the untrending story and how you help people like me, people like us.
Right. Yeah. Because we're all in the same boat, right?
We are.
With the internet.
Yes.
It's something that's become almost indispensable. So most of us can't really imagine now living life without being connected in some way or other, and we rely on it for our day-to-day existence, whether we're entrepreneurs or not.
Yeah.
So in personal lives, people rely on it for their banking, for example, for staying in touch with their children and their grandchildren. There's all kinds of ways that we're using it personally, and then there's ways that we're using it professionally. And there's two things I want to address right off the top. One is, I think it's a little bit like, when people are dealing with issues of kind of like dealing with food addiction.
Yes.
Eating addiction, you have to have food. And we're getting to that point, in a sense, with the internet where we have to have internet. So then how do we, it's not like quitting smoking, right? It's a different kind of thing.
Like
we have
diet.
To find a way to live with it, not live without it entirely. We can't just abstain as a choice. At least abstain. We can't abstain indefinitely.
Because everything else that we're addicted to, they tell us to stop. Alcoholics stop drinking, drug addicts, they're successful when they stop using drugs. But if we're addicted to online life, we still have to online bank. We still have to do all those things.
Right. And I think it's really important to make that distinction between, what is addiction versus what is just an out of balance situation, or what is a situation where you are spending more time online than might be good for you, or that might be good for your relationships. There's lots of markers to look at, as do other addicts. Like, what's the line between being an alcoholic and being someone who just drinks a little too much? So you need to use, and I want to be really careful in the work that I do, because there are people who are doing therapeutic work in digital addiction.
Yes.
And that's not what I do. So I do want to have that distinction be clear up front.
And that's not what we're talking. I want to know that it's okay to be disconnected for a period of time. I want to find out, and I want to know what the benefits are.
Right.
Like,
And that's the second point that I kind of wanted to go to, Steve, was at the beginning. You said, like, why would you be disconnected? It kind of fills you with angst. And so it's almost the question that I put back to people, which is, okay, why would you? Why would you be considering it? What is telling, like, what are the signals that you're getting from your day-to-day life that tell you need to spend less time online?
And but this is, I'm not sure that we are getting them. Maybe you can tell me we are getting some. Yeah. But it's like you know, I always go back to this story recently. It was a big impact on my life. Was moving houses when we decluttered our house, and we had the house stager come in and they told us to get rid of all these things. They were all good things, and I had no idea that these things were creating a burden on me. But when we removed them from our life, all of a sudden I felt so much better. And I had no warning that I had no promise that this was going to happen. Right. I just experienced it. Yeah, I couldn't see the problem. So tell me where the problem is with this online existence.
Good. Okay, so that's good. So, and again, we're going to go to kind of like 2 points. One is that it's only a problem if you see it as a problem. So that's one thing. So there are people who are participating in this webinar who know they have a problem. They're already thinking, oh, I shouldn't be picking up my phone again. I shouldn't be looking at my phone in the middle of the night. Or they're at lunch with a friend and they go to reach for their phone and they're thinking, why am I doing that?
Yeah,
so they kind of know already. And then there's those that really aren't aware that maybe. And so what I often say to people like that, if they have an inkling, if they're asking the question, that's an inkling, that's already a signal. And then the other thing is go off for a while, even if it's half a day, even if it's 1 hour, and see how you feel. And then you'll know what the signal is, because then you'll be aware, okay, I've just said I'm not going to go on my phone for the next 60 minutes. Does your pulse start to race? Does your mouth go dry? Do you start to get worried that you're missing something? And you know, I want to say, yes, probably, because that happens to me too. And I'm pretty well practiced at setting boundaries for myself around online, offline engagement, as well as other kinds of engagement, how much time I spend socializing versus how much time I spend kind of in contemplative time, which is important to me, right? So the problem identification can be a problem itself, but one of the best ways I know of to tell is just simply make a deal with yourself that you're going to go offline and see what happens.
What are the signs that we are, like, I think, you know, being an entrepreneur, all those sorts of things, you know, I think obviously my online communication is as relevant to me as my personal communication. But the things that get me thinking are when I'm just sitting down with Shan downstairs and we're talking, and how I'll check my phone when I'm talking with my wife. And I'm thinking there's part of me that says, damn it all, that's really rude. You know, it's just inconsiderate. Why aren't you just concentrating on the person that's there? And that's what's got me thinking. Now, I don't think I'm bad at it. I don't think it's, well, obviously I don't think I'm that bad. I don't think it's like an evil practice.
Right.
But I wonder if it's a respectful practice.
Yeah, and I think that the questions that you're asking are the right questions. So the question is, like, what is so compelling that might be on your phone that is more compelling than the conversation you're having with the person in front of you, especially if it's your wife, but also if it's any other human.
Yeah.
You know, if it's any, so what is it that is making that, what is it that's going on kind of on the periphery of your consciousness that's drawing you over to that device, whether it's the phone or the computer or whatever, you know, the iPad that you're using. And I think, you know, part of it is this thing that we talk about almost jokingly, which is the fear of missing out. You know, the acronym FOMO that we use a lot in the online environment is that we're afraid that there's something going on that we're not part of. And so then we need to ask ourselves the deeper questions, which is, what is it that we're afraid we're missing out on? And is it important? Does it really matter? Because maybe there is something going on the phone that's really important to you and actually supersedes in priority the conversation. But it probably would have to do with a stage of your business, you know, especially if you're using an online environment to market or promote services or a cause or something like that. Or it may have to do with something that's going on in your personal life that you need to be on top of, like someone's ill.
Yeah.
Those are compelling reasons.
Yeah.
But the other ones aren't as compelling. And so the question we start to ask ourselves is then, what is it in me that is compelling me toward that distraction?
And this goes back, do you remember, actually, Vicki and I go way back, and I was doing a course, an in-person course, and we had an email expert come onto the course. And they were talking about the course. It might have been when we first actually met in person, Vicki. And she was talking about email addiction and people checking their email too often. This was like, what is it now, 9 years ago, 8 years ago? And for the first time,
we had email to check.
For the first time, I heard somebody talk about the fact that checking your email and looking at what's on your inbox created the same, is it a dopamine or is it the same chemical as playing lottery games and stuff, because there was always the chance that something good was going to happen when you checked your email. And that's what happens with Facebook and with Instagram.
Yeah.
Is there's always so is it worth us all taking a step back and saying, wait a minute, what am I addicted to, that rush of and I think we all know when we're a little bit out of control and we just check it not because we think that there's anything there, right, but check it because we're bored, or in my case, check it because I don't feel like doing the job that I'm supposed to be doing.
Right. It's a big distraction, right?
Yeah.
It's a really great way to take you away from whatever else. And, one thing about humans that I've learned over the years, and I think see, for years I taught writing workshops, for example, and writing requires a lot of discipline and focus. It's one of those kinds of things that you really have to carve out time for, and you have to sit, you have to be disciplined about it, and you have to focus. And as humans, and it's also quite hard work, actually. Yes. So as humans, we don't really like to work hard. We don't really like discipline that much. We don't like to have to concentrate. And so for writers, that can be really, really hard because they have to create this space for concentration and work and discipline. And so then suddenly something like, this is the joke we always used to make, you can tell you're writing a book when suddenly your bathroom gets really, really clean. Because, suddenly cleaning the bathroom becomes more important than having that disciplined, focused, concentrated time. Well, that's amplified now because we have this distraction available. So we want to move away from what we really have to do. Mm-hmm. And what we're maybe compelled to do, like our work is important to us, presumably. The entrepreneurs on this webinar, I'm hoping, are really doing their work because they're purposeful and passionate about it. So it's compelling. And yet we'll use the device as a way of distracting, because honestly, we have this technology partly because we love to find the shortcuts. Mm-hmm. We're human. Yeah. We love to find a way to make it easy and to not have to concentrate so hard, because that's hard work. And it's a kind of a natural human tendency. So it's almost in trying to be more mindful about our use, we're fighting our own tendencies in a sense, which is also not that easy to do. But I do think it's worth doing. To answer your question, I think absolutely yes, because we need to be focusing, I think, on what's really important to us.
So we have to think about how we react. Does the fast foodication of information, by this I mean, I mean the fact that we used to have to work hard to get any information. You have to look at a book, you had to read, you had to sit down and wait through the TV commercial for the news to come on. You had to listen to the radio and listen. You couldn't browse through, glance, and just have a quick snippet, a quick snack of the information or that you're looking for, and then move on to the next thing. And I know there's a lot of conversation about this is all generating an ADHD type of society, but there is that we have access to so much that fires our imagination in such little bites. You're talking about being a writer. I can't imagine how hard it is today to sit down and focus with all of the distracted world that we live in, right? On and how long can you concentrate?
And to add to that mix, that you're writing, at least I am, most writers today are writing on the very device that offers you all of the distraction within it, right?
And so when you hit a little bit of writer's block, you look for inspiration. It's as quick. It's as quick as a Google search, right?
Yeah. Or you think, I have to figure out, I was doing some writing recently where I was trying to figure out what particular singer would be relevant to a certain time frame of the 1960s, and I had in my mind that it was Roger Miller, but I wasn't sure. So I scoot onto the internet to look up Roger Miller hit songs, and then I see Nancy Sinatra songs, and then I'm starting down a rabbit hole, right? So it's very, very easy. Even when you're trying to use the internet itself for work or a purposeful reason. I was just thinking about what you were saying. The other thing, along with the sort of fast foodery, which I really agree with, that we become very accustomed to fast food solutions, which makes it difficult for someone like me trying to advise people in a way, because most of the strategies I advise people take time. You need to work with them. There isn't actually an overnight answer to a problem that took a lifetime to create. It's you're not going to get a shortcut to something that was a complicated path to get there. But the other thing that I think is really happening right now is that we are really in this time of where our attention has become the commodity, right? So online, not just people who are marketing online, but everyone from content providers to politicians, our attention has become the thing that is of value, that they're willing to pay a lot of time and money to get. And so there's a way that I want to kind of reframe that, say, yes, that's what's happening, and we need to be conscious of it, but we also need to remember how much value that attention has.
That's an interesting perspective. I think a lot of us, I'll speak for myself, feel a certain amount of guilt attached to the time I spend online. Think that it's my responsibility to, obviously it's my responsibility to meter it. But when you recognize the fact that the industry is geared to entrap me that way, because we are the product. That's the whole thing of we are
our
the
attention
product.
is the commodity that is, in a sense, being traded on the internet, marketplace, if you will. And so then how do we want our attention to be that thing that is traded?
We've unpacked a lot in a short time already looking at this. So we've looked at, the fear of missing out and that side of it. But then we've talked about the triggers, the fact that it's is it dopamine? Am I right about what's created?
I think that's what it is. I know it is the same. It's kind of like this. It's, it's like when you look at that you get that little rush, right?
Yeah, you get a little affirmation.
That little joy. It's like, I call it like the joy juice. You get that little joy juice. So that can become very addictive. It can become and yet what happens, and I think this is something to really be aware of, is that we get that when we're on our screens. And then what can happen is that real life itself, where it tends to deliver that in a much more subtle and more nuanced and more, takes much longer to deliver that to us, becomes kind of flat.
Yeah.
Because it's not instantaneous. And so we're getting the delivery on the feel-good juice in real time is offline is much different than the way we get it online. And we're losing our sense of patience, our sense of realizing that, it takes time for happiness to mature. It takes time for that to grow.
So is for most of us, the answer is to just put the technology away for periods of time is literally, we think of digital detoxes as being going away for a week and not connecting, but can a digital detox be just a couple of hours? Or
I think so, and it's funny, I was making some notes before coming on with you, Stephen. I was sort of looking at it in two ways. There's kind of like, what do we do on a daily basis? Like, how can we have a little bit more, to use your word balance? I prefer the word wholeness. I think balance is a little bit of an illusion. Like if you're launching a new online product, you're going to be online pretty much, all the hours you've got, because you really want to navigate how that product's doing, et cetera, versus a time when you're maybe in a lull of that, or you're away, like I'm away right now. You have a different relationship with the technology. So there's a way that we need to find kind of like a wholeness where all the parts of our lives get to work together, including the digital part. So there's like that day to day on a regular basis. What can you do? And then there's like taking that time, like taking a dedicated, if you want to call it a detox or a time away, I like to call it, JOMO, the joy of missing out, like take time where you actually deliberately go away and go offline for a period of time. My longest time has been a week. And
that's
I was
just crazy talk. That's crazy talk.
I was actually, I was in the wilderness for part of it. And I say, like, there wasn't an option. When you're, I was very deliberate about being somewhere where I couldn't get online, just to be sure I could give myself the space. But I think on a day-to-day basis, a couple things I would point out, one is figure out what really matters to you and do that. So I know on my online environments and my social media, my online community is really important to me. And so if I do nothing else in a day, I will check in with that community. See what conversations are going on there, because that's what matters. It doesn't matter as much to me what's going on in the general world of Twitter and Facebook and so on. What matters to me is what's happening on my Facebook groups in that community and my Instagram stories community, because they're really we're really having something going on that's a real rapport. So really figure out what's important and then focusing on that each day, and do that first so that then you are free not to go back onto your feeds if you don't want to, because you've done the important stuff and gotten it over, which is like, it's the age-old priority setting thing, right? Do what matters. And the other thing that I do, which I have found really effective, is I really manage my notifications. I have the only notifications right now on my phone are my Instagram stories notifications. And partly because I'm running something for a client that I need to keep my eye on right now. I don't have any of my other notifications going. I go on my phone often enough and on my computer often enough that I can check anything I need to check without the phone telling me. And it takes away that sense of urgency. I'm not looking at a bunch of little red bubbles with numbers in them.
Okay.
So it's just a way of dealing with that. I don't have that, like, I've got to check, look at all the notifications. So I'm talking to my husband, but I'm also got my eye on my notifications. So I don't have them because I don't need to. And then the other thing that I think can be really helpful is if you do that, you set up a schedule for checking. So know that you're going to,
Mike Vardy says that a lot for email. He says, like, he won't check his email before a certain period of time in the day and that kind of stuff. Yeah. Yeah. And then also something I kind of call, it's like, the notion of a Sabbath, that you have a day or a time in the day when you don't go online. And I tend to have that, and I'm not 100% rigorous with it, but usually not in the morning before 8 o'clock and not before bed, like the last hour before bed. So that I have transitional time in and out of my day. That's just me, my thoughts. It's me with my husband. It's just time.
And people don't expect me to be online at those times.
So you don't check your phone first thing in the morning?
I do sometimes. I don't usually.
But if it's project-based, if it's based on something that's happening.
For me, and again, it has to do, and this is what people need to think about in terms of their own work and their own communities and who they're serving. I do a lot of writing. And so for me, the best time for me to write is first thing in the morning. I wake up in the morning with the stories writing themselves or with the content writing itself. And I want to grab that with my teeth.
Nothing gets in the way of that then?
Well, they can, but I try not to.
You try, but I mean,
perfection is, aiming for perfection is not a good idea. You just set yourself up for failure, I think.
So for people that aren't writers, what do you think the biggest benefit to creating, what did you call it, creating a whole life around it?
Or just having wholeness, where you've got all the parts of your life are kind of working together. At different times, different balances are required.
And are we codependent? Like, is this something that we have to do with our nuclear family? Is it something that we have to do? Because I can see that.
I think so, yeah. I think if you're going to have time away, especially, you need to be considering what is the lifestyle of your family and those people that you need to be in contact with. It might be your work team, it might be, and so you need to bring them in on it.
Yes.
You need to say, so now this is going to be our new routine. Please don't send me any work-related emails before 9 because I'm not checking my email until after 9 a.m.
Or if you do, just recognize that I won't be looking at it.
No, I'm not going to answer. I mean, I always put away notifications when I go away, and I usually explain that I'm away taking time for myself.
Yeah.
Because I'm trying to partly proselytize the message, but it's also partly to say to people, like, I'm taking a pause, I'm taking a break, and people will respect that. I did get an interesting one. I had someone who actually messaged me on Facebook saying, I know you're away, so I'm sending you a message here instead of an email. So they know how to get me one way or the other.
Okay. So there's back doors in as far as text.
Yeah, well, there is, and there's so many things to check, right, these days. So.
Well, that's the thing, and especially when, like it's a good thought. Like I like to leave my phone up here in the office, but our life has become so entwined that a kid texts me and it's like they're saying, well, why didn't you respond? It was 2 hours. And I realized that, but it's good for me being downstairs cooking and just visiting with the family, but not having the phone then becomes an issue because, so it's the balance is, I'm afraid of saying
balance and it's the boundaries, right? It's also saying, I didn't answer within 2 hours because I was downstairs cooking and that was so great, right?
Yeah,
really enjoying and setting up the expectations, especially with close friends and family. One of the big frameworks that I think I could leave people with that would be really helpful, either for just the day-to-day living part or if you were going on a digital detox, is something that we call the yes-no framework. And it's just that if you're saying no to your phone, what are you saying yes to?
Oh.
Because there's always a trade-off, and that's part of the wholeness thing. So if you say no to being on the phone as much or no to keeping the phone downstairs with you, you're saying yes to fully concentrating on your cooking and being fully present in your relationship. That's a pretty big yes.
Yeah, especially if you flip it around. If you say no to a member of your family that's sitting right beside you because you're saying yes to the phone, why are you saying no to that person?
It works both ways, and it's a really valuable framework because then you start to see that there's a lot of power in the no, like the being where we're afraid to be away, where we're afraid that we might miss out on something. Actually, we're saying no to that to say yes to something else that's maybe more important or more meaningful.
Okay. Well, let's do this. Let's wrap up this part right now. Let's get back to the live Q&A because I know that people will be asking for some real tactics and they'll be asking for some specifics. So we're going to pop over and we're going to head back to our live Q&A.
Excellent.
So, Vicky.
Hey,
good
that was fun.
That was your first time experiencing the dottotech chat. Did you like it?
Yeah, I liked it. Lots of great people doing lots of great things already in the chat. There's lots of great strategies there.
There was, and Stuart and several other people pointed out how meta it was that we were distracted from the conversation by the chat.
Yeah.
And I think that's a bonus. See, I look at that and I say that it's respecting your time. That's the way that I look at our chat, is respecting our community's time by us engaging in the chat, answering a lot of the questions, increasing what I call the information density of the webinar. But I totally get the fact that we were also at the same time kind of.
Right, it's a distraction, right? We're setting up a distraction already. So
some people turn off the chat. Some people turn off the chat so they're not being bothered as they go through it. Oh, can I turn off the poll? April's asking. Is the poll not off? Seems to be off on mine, so let me go here.
I can check the poll on mine, I think.
Well, I think It's still kind of showing up at the very bottom of the screen. I don't know how to turn it off from there. So we won't worry about it right now because I have to do a little bit of business first, talk about upcoming next week and get our little bit of business out of the way. Oh, April did it. Okay, never mind. Good. Okay, so let me just jump into a quick slideshow here, and then we will get back to your Q&A. Is that okay, Vicki?
Perfect. Yeah.
Gonna hold on?
I'm right here. Not going anywhere.
Excellent stuff. Okay, so I wanted to, where's the slide? Why is that? There we go. Slide. Slide's not working. That is an interesting issue. Let me try it again. Let's see if they're there. Try one more time. The slides did not upload correctly this time. All right, so we are going to skip the slideshow, and I'm just going to fill you folks in. April will drop into the chat the link to next week's webinar. But next week, we're going to be talking about crowdfunding and Patreon. We're going to be talking about how you build a community and how you raise funds. This has come as a request of several requests from our webinars, people wanting to know a little bit more about how you build a crowdfunding. And this could work for any type of content creator. This can, as far as the concept of crowdfunding can work in a variety of different areas. But we'll be specifically kind of looking towards the content creator side of crowdfunding, which brings me to a big thank you to our patrons who support us here on dottotech. Now, dottotech is a community-funded channel. We're supported by the generosity of you folks who support us through the crowdfunding site Patreon. And the way it works is people sign up for Patreon, they support us financially to the tune of $10 a month, and for that you get perks, and the perks are pretty cool. One perk, the first perk is you get a discount on all of our courses, and those discounts are up to 50% off on our premium courses, which is a huge savings of money. The second perk that you get is you get access to all of our Webinar Wednesday archives. This is the 57th webinar that we've produced in our weekly webinar series, and they're all designed like this to be tutorial, to be educational. They aren't promotional webinars. They are all training and tutorial webinars. We make them available for 48 hours for free, for replay afterwards for anybody who missed it or couldn't take it in free. We always present it for free, but then after that 48-hour window, we archive it in the Webinar Wednesday archives for the benefit of our patrons. So you have access to now 57 webinars that are tutorials, everything from WordPress to time management to email management to tips and techniques on video production. And we cover a gamut. Next week, we're doing Patreon. The following week, we're going to be showing you how to create your first online course. So that's all of the type of content that we create. So to all of our patrons who are online with us, which I know there's many, thank you so much for your support. We appreciate it. And we send you a big hug. And for the rest of you, if you're considering, drop by our Patreon page, have a look, and maybe you too want to become part of dottotech's Patreon community. I know Vicky's a patron. I was your very first patron. Yes. I actually reached out to Vicky and said, you have to sign up because I need some. And I still am. I still am a patron. So you're the longest serving patron. You're patron number one. I am. And I always get my hug. Yeah, you do. You do always get your hug. That was a great perk that I offer. It's one of the perks that we offer. All right. So let us get in, and I'm going to deal with the questions right now. So I'm just going to jump over into the admin panel because the questions are demarked there more easily. So are you ready to go? I am. I'm excited. Yeah. Very excited. There was one thing that I commented in the comments that I just want to share with you just before we go on. And it was interesting. People were talking about one of the key themes that we saw over and over again in the comments, Vicky, was people talking about how important it was to be present with your family or with whoever it is you're talking to at the moment you're talking. And it reminded me, I'm a huge fan of Alexander Graham Bell. He's like a hero. The guy was just an incredible mind and gift. But a lot of people don't know that his motivation for inventing the telephone and all of that was because his wife was deaf. He spent his life in pursuit of helping people overcome that challenge, the challenge of the hearing challenge. And his wife was deaf. But they always talk about what an incredible motivator she was and what an incredible person she was in their family. And the reason was when she's talked to somebody, her entire attention was on those person. Right. She was what Alexander Graham Bell described as an active listener. And if you think about a person who can't hear and they're just focusing on lip reading or signing with you, they don't have time to be distracted. They're focusing on the communication, the conversation. So they're 100% engaged on the person they're engaged with. And it was such a joy. Even 100 years ago, it was a joy to have somebody that focused on you. I think there's a powerful lesson in that, a powerful lesson.
And we all know that when we're with someone who's engaged in that way and we're being attended to in that way, like we can really feel that and we respond to it, right?
Yes.
And so what I would point us to a little bit in our conversation then is part of dealing with the distraction of the internet or our online engagements is bringing that presence back to self. Like to be fully engaged with awareness of our own self, doing that active listening to self, right? So it's a great example.
I'm going to apologize to you right now because I'm going to be multitasking as I go through and prep each next question. So it'll appear.
So I won't be expecting your full presence.
I'm not 100%. So now what will happen here is we'll get questions from all over the map. For example, Stuart asked what we are using. Are we using Skype or Zoom or some other tool for the interview? Just technically speaking, how we recorded that interview was Vicky and I connected by Skype yesterday. I used this tool called the Ecamm call recorder on Skype, which is available on the Mac, which records the conversation. And it's got a cool utility built into it when you purchase that. And then I composed the video as you saw it. So it's pretty cool. The only challenge is they're making sure that the audio is good. And you actually notice there's a little bit of a level difference that I did my best to adjust. But that's how we recorded that. Peggy, her question, and this was very early on, and I know we dealt with it a bit in the conversation, but is going offline different than ignoring notifications on your phone?
Right. So I think that I sort of addressed it a little bit in the chat in that I think that ignoring notifications or silencing them, like turning them right off, is a great strategy for managing distraction. And it's partly personal choice. So you can go offline completely, which might mean that you do not even carry your phone for a day, an afternoon or an hour, whatever works for you. So, partly the definition of what it looks like is going to be individual. Like it's going to be based on what you sense your needs being, or what you're trying to address, what part of overwhelm or distraction or that sense of not being present that you're trying to address for yourself.
Good. Okay.
First question down. Yay. Okay.
You're into it.
Val
says, I find it challenging to keep up with all the many channels of communication: email, multiple accounts, text, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, LinkedIn, and some of the Facebook, Messenger, Slack, and more. Some for social and most for work too. And that's all. Is that a technology issue?
It's both, I think. And this one, I'm so glad you picked this question out of the bunch because I saw it go by and I thought, I hope we get a chance to address that one. Because I think this is where really deciding what matters and what's important to you and to the community or that you're trying to serve or the customers that you're trying to reach, depending on, you have a bit of a mixed group, mostly entrepreneurs probably in your webinar today, Steve. I just think you really decide what it is that, what are the 1, 2, possibly 3 platforms that you need to most be engaging on in order to best serve a particular community, and then focus on those ones. It's really challenging to be good at everything, first of all. And it's very, very challenging. The more that you get going, the more difficult it becomes to make the choices. It's almost like, you suffer from decision overload. You mentioned Mike Vardy in our video. He's a great resource. I hope it's okay to pitch a little bit toward him. I just think he does really interesting talks as well as his products online. Very, very useful. But he talks about this, like, choosing just 1 or 2 things to focus on. I know from my community, the people that primarily that I serve in this kind of work is really Facebook groups are primary to them, as well as Instagram and Instagram stories. So I spend a bit of time on Twitter. I spend a bit of time on LinkedIn, but really I focus my efforts and energy and my real-time engagement in those places because I know that's where the community is that I want to serve. So it's about making that choice, what really matters, really defining it.
Yeah, I think you're bang on. There's and Mike Vardy is an excellent resource, one that I turn to. As a matter of fact, we're going through a decision-making process on some tools to streamline things here at dottotech, and I'm talking to Mike on a regular basis.
I've brought him in to work with my clients as well on things like time management. He's an excellent resource.
He's in Vegas right now partying it up. But there's 3 aspects here, though. There's the fear of missing out aspect, which means that you're trying to be in all networks at all times so you don't miss out on anything. That's just a path to just absolute overload.
Yeah, it doesn't work personally, like we're only one human, but it also doesn't work because they're very different in how they're used. And so for your product, service, or cause, you want the tool that really resonates.
Yeah.
resonance is so important to your marketing strategy, right?
So you have to trust yourself and your community to let them know this is the place that I'm going to concentrate, and people will get to know that that's where they can communicate. But honor that, like don't
be there consistently.
Yeah.
Be consistent with that, and then they know that, and it's partly that thing we used to say in the old days. You have to train your clients when they can call you and when they can't. In the days when we all use the landline, it's similar. People will get to they'll know where to find you.
And there is a technology aspect too. A tool like Agora Pulse, which we promote here at dottotech, we're actually an ambassador, so the full disclosure there. But Agora Pulse, the reason that I was gravitated towards that product at the very beginning was it is a wonderful communications manager for multiple social platforms. So I'm not missing out on things, and I spend less time. I go into the single dashboard, and all of my social accounts are there, and all of the conversations that I have to address are there in one place, and I can deal with all of my social accounts in about a half an hour in the morning.
And this is like technology working for you rather than you working for technology, finding the tool that's best.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So thank you, Val, for putting that question before us. Okay, Peggy. Peggy said, is that the eating the frog technology? I looked at eat that frog. And do you know?
I don't know that reference. I'm sorry.
Okay, well, we're going to let it slide by. It looks like an interesting read. It's about it's a PDF download from a fellow named Paul Miners. It looks like it's called "Eat That Frog."
Oh, I'll check it out after. Yeah,
it's a great title, but it's basically talking about 21 tips to design you stop procrastinating and get work done. So it's really for procrastinating.
Okay, yeah, how to deal with distraction. Very good. Yeah.
Yes. Okay, next up we have Laura, who says, let me just get it posted here. Interesting. This comment, I don't have the ability to post it out the same way. Oh, there it is, broadcast. There it is. I find that technology is one of the biggest issues I face, and I don't mean to simply try to connect it with Facebook, etc. I'm talking about making technology consistently work. It's very time consuming.
Yeah. So, I guess I'm going to pitch in a sense to you, Steve. I think that you're a great resource, and you're one that I refer nearly all my clients to almost on the very first meeting when they're wanting to deal with ways of mastering technology, or at least starting to try to master technology. There's a couple things I think are important. I did mention in the feed, there's a little conversation going about decluttering. I think one of the ways is to really, almost similar to the previous answer, really decide what is the technology you absolutely need. Make that work for you, and then try to get rid of the extraneous stuff that's not really serving you. And that can be both hardware and software, because the more that you simplify the systems and tools that you use, the easier your time online will be, and you can get in and out more quickly. You can come in and do what you need to do and leave, and you're not distracted by a lot of extraneous stuff. But I think we're all frustrated by the sort of the promise of technology versus the actual use of technology.
And I will say one other thing to that. And I spoke about it a little bit actually in my vlog this past week, where I said I'm breaking up. And everybody thought, oh, it's clickbait because you're breaking up. It's talking about choosing tools and stopping using them in favor of other tools. But at the end of the day, whatever tools you use, I know this seems counterintuitive, but if you truly master the technology, the tool, if you dive in and take responsibility for learning all the aspects of the tool, you can then apply measures that make you more productive and make you more efficient in the use of those tools. One of the biggest problems I think people have is they use a tool, email or some other tool, and they try and spend the bare minimum of time in that tool, thinking that they're saving time. But what happens is they're actually vastly less efficient within the tool, and it ends up costing them time. So regardless of what tool you use, learn what it will do, learn how to use it effectively, and to make it work within your system.
And I don't know if this is something you'd advise or not, Steve, but I know for myself, something I found that's worked really well, and it depends on if you're in the position to do this in your businesses or not, but is to also hire someone who can do that for you. So I know I don't have an appetite to learn all the ins and outs of every single tool. I know the things that I use regularly. I know them well. But I have an assistant. She is actually based in New Zealand, but she works with me in Canada. And I send her things and say, here, figure out how this works so that we can use it really well. And then she gets to know it super well. And then our whole system as a team works more effectively. And that then gives me back more precious time.
Yes.
Be present with the people that I love, or to be focusing on the creative work I want to do.
Sylvia says, again, what's the name of the app for recording conversations or webinars? Working on a Mac is great tips. Well, the tool that I use for creating and recording all of the videos is ScreenFlow. But so in the case of the video that we inserted in our video today, there was 3 tools that were used in succession. First of all, we used Skype for recording the conversation. We used an add-on to Skype called Ecamm Call Recorder. Skype created the connection with Vicky and myself. Ecamm Call Recorder recorded it. There's a utility built into that called Split Sides of Conversation, which split it into 2 different video tracks. And then I brought it into ScreenFlow, where I edited it and output it and uploaded it to YouTube for the insertion in the video. So that was how that happened.
Magic happens.
Bob says, you mentioned an aggregator in the past. Would you remind us of those resources? By aggregator, are you talking about the social media dashboard? It was Agora Pulse that I mentioned that I use. What do you use, Vicky? Do you use Hootsuite or Agora Pulse? We
use Hootsuite, but we're relatively small. Like our community is relatively small.
Yeah.
By comparison to yours, I'm saying. It's great for us.
Agora Pulse. So Agora Pulse is what I use for all that, and its strength is conversation management. It's a really solid tool from that perspective. All right, let's go through and see. Here we go. Laura says, technology issues are particularly difficult if you're solo. I am a fiction writer, no teams, no funds to pay virtual assistants.
Yeah, I hear you. And so Laura, my advice for you, and I was there. Platforms for publication. So when I'm saying that, I'm thinking that publishers look for what kind of platform do you have in terms of social platform. What are the platforms where people who are into your kind of fiction writing are going to be, and then learn those really super well. So that you're staying really focused on what matters. Like the book on trending that Steve mentioned at the beginning, it's about social media that matters. It's about figuring out how to use social media in a way that is meaningful so that the time you're spending there is time well spent, not time wasted. So that, especially for writers, so important because you need that focus and concentration that we talked about in the video. Yeah.
Superb. I think that's it for questions. I learned something. Oh, I think my delivery guy is here too. Good heavens. Oh, you know what? You're just gonna have to wait a sec. Sorry.
Okay, see you later. Let me just hold the ball here. So while I have you, I'll just take a look at what's the name of my book? Oh, great. Thank you. Great question. The name of my book is called Untrending, A Field Guide to Social Media That Matters, How to Post, Tweet, and Like Your Way into a More Meaningful Life. And it is available on my website, which I think April will put up the link for, also available on Amazon.com and .ca, Canadian and American. And yes, that is it. And but also, I was going to tell you guys, I also have an online community called the Big Fat Yes Club. That is really, I'm trying to create a sort of different experience of being online in that community. It's more very intentional, very conscious, great people, mainly people in business. So it's free to join. You're welcome to join that. And I think April will also pop that link in. Yes, my book's available on my website as well. And if you order it on my website, my wonderful assistant from New Zealand will make sure that you get it. Took a long time to get that relationship working, and I'm really pleased to have it now. Yeah. So also, let's see, what else? Do you guys have any questions while Steve's waiting?
Are we still on air? Okay.
We are. I took the opportunity to plug the book someone asked about, and also the online, the Big Fat Yes Club online community, where you get, if you join the Big Fat Yes Club, we actually send you things by snail mail, and we have a beautiful quarterly magazine that we publish called Pause, a tiny magazine that doesn't hustle, boss, crush, or slay. So you also get an edition of that when you sign up. So it's all free. Yeah.
Excellent. That's a table that just got delivered. I was really worried about it because it was.
That's right. I'm glad it came. So now I can come over for that barbecue.
Yes, it's a cedar table for our backyard. I thought it was going to be huge, but it's in a box. I'm concerned that it looks like I've got a lot of construction to do and a lot of building to do.
Yeah.
But I'll do that after. Looking forward to
later. Yeah.
Yes.
Are you good at that, Steve? Or is that something that are you like a person that can put things together? I don't know that about you.
It's a complete aside. I am really good at actually that kind of stuff, but I hate doing it. Okay. My dad was an engineer, and I am the opposite of my dad in almost every way, but my dad made sure that I was handy, but I'm not handy. I don't like doing it, so I don't do a good job. But I actually worked for years as a printing press repairman. I just, because working, my dad we had 2 metal lathes in our basement. One was a huge metal lathe that didn't have all the parts that my dad had gotten at some garage sale or something. And one was a smaller lathe where we were making, and a milling machine where we were making the parts for the lathe that didn't have the parts. That was my childhood. It was insane.
Yeah.
So anyways, I realize I'm sounding like a whiner, but at any rate, I will be able to put the table together.
Okay, good. And I just think people are commenting that the link is not working. Sorry about that. So I will contact Kimmy and find out why. But if you are interested in joining the club, just pop me an email via the website, and I'll make sure.
We send out a follow-up email in a few hours today, Vicky. So you get the link working, we'll include it in the resources. We always send out the resources in the email.
Yeah.
So
sorry, you guys. I'm sorry that the site, this is very strange, but I'm out of town, so I haven't been on the site this week. So we'll just, Kimmy will sort it out, and we'll make sure you get everything you need.
Good. And that's it. Looks like we don't have any more questions. That was great. Vicky, thank you so much.
Thank you. It was a pleasure. It's always fun to be with you, and just love the work you're up to in the world, as you know. Making all of our lives so much easier and making our ride with technology so much better.
Well, I appreciate it. I'm blushing. Thank you. All right, folks, listen, that's it for this week. Sign up for next week's webinar. We're going to be talking about Patreon. We're going to be having lots of fun as we explore that. It has been such a blessing to us here at dottotech. It's been the basis for us growing the channel the way we have, and for adding the people that make the channel work for us, because I certainly it would still be just me without Patreon. But now we have April, we have Liz, we have Sophia. Yeah. We've got a real team that makes it work here at dottotech. So with that, I have to have a big hug and thanks to Vicky. Make sure you sign up for all of Vicky's stuff. She is a smart and inspiring woman.
Thank you, my friend.
Thanks to April in the control room. Till next time, have fun storming a castle.